In our previous coding, we determined if any data was returned from a query by using an if statement after we had already queried the database. For example, we would retrieve an item from the database by using the method findById and storing it in a variable, in this case, data. Then we would check to see if that data variable was set, and if it wasn't, then we would throw an exception. We can combine those two steps with the exists method. We use the exists method to check to see if an item exists in the database. This method returns a Boolean value of true or false. The method also takes an optional single parameter, which is the ID of the item you're trying to look up. For example, we would use this, the model name, and then exists method, and then pass in the ID as the parameter. Another example of its use would be to set the model name ID first with the ID of the item you are looking up in the database, and then call the exists method with no parameter being passed. Since you have already specified the ID in the model you are looking up, the exists method will use that ID when checking the database. For example, we would type this, our model name, and then the ID variable, and set it to the ID that we are trying to find in the database. Then we would run the exists method by this model name exists, not passing in any parameter. On occasion, you will need to remove an item from the database. In that case, we use the delete method. This returns a Boolean value, which will be true or false based on its success. The delete method takes one optional parameter, which is the ID of the item you are trying to remove from the database. For example, we would use this, the model name, and then the delete method with the ID being passed as the parameter. Another example of its use would be to set the model name ID first with the ID of the item you are wanting to delete from the database, and then call the delete method with no parameter being passed. Since you already have the specified ID in the model you are deleting, the delete method will then use that ID when it deletes an item from the database. Let's go ahead and implement these two new methods in our items controller.